tremendous thanks to Alan, to Kay Carl, to Dylan, who pulled this whole thing together, and all of you for being here tonight. I can't tell you how much it honors me to see people want to come out and hear and engage and begin to understand the process of what we're doing. I am from Colorado, as Kay Carl mentioned. I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I have 3 children, 17, 13, and 9. Our 17-year-old is a freshman in the United States Air Force Academy as we speak. He's an impressive young man. He's an impressive young man. He was North Carolina and Florida State and UCLA and all those schools were after him for his athletic capabilities. Yale and Harvard and Princeton and Stanford and all of them were after him because of his grades and his test scores, but he wanted to serve his country, so he went to the United States Air Force Academy where he's running right now. Colorado, we have a slightly different culture in Colorado than you have here. You go to different parts of the country. This is my first time in South Florida since I was a little kid anyway. And you go to different parts of the country and you realize the different flavors of culture. And of course, your culture here is very influenced by Latin America. You got a lot of Latin American immigrants and stuff like that here. When I was driving down here yesterday, you've got I'm surfing through the radio channels because I don't have any CDs or anything to pop in the player, so I'm listening to the radio. And you have every kind of Spanish language radio station imaginable. You've got Spanish talk, you've got Spanish hip-hop, you've got this oddity known as Spanish hard rock radio. And you turn this thing on and this dude comes on and says, "Oye muchachos y mujeres, ahora vamos a bailar las fiestas con la música de Led Zeppelin." Did he just say? But I'm not going to give you a lot of my background and stuff, because there's a long way to go, and frankly, it's not about me, so that's not important. But I have a corporate background before becoming an entrepreneur a number of years ago, and now I do this pretty much full time. But when you're in corporate America, and I was climbing the corporate ladder, becoming a manager and what have you, they put you through these trainings, or if you're in these multi-level marketing companies, they do the same thing, leadership training, where you need to come up with your life's mission statement. You ever have this thing where you need to come up with a mission statement for your life? And I could never do that. How do you come up with a mission statement for your life? I'd come up with something and now that's stupid, cross it off, come up with something else, go with that for a week, cross it off. I could never do it until now. About 2 years ago, I came up with a mission statement for my life. My mission in life is to fundamentally change the Republican Party. That's my life. Now, this is interesting, because I stand in front of groups of people, mostly all Republicans, and I say my mission is to fundamentally change the Republican Party, and people respond the way you just responded. Good, because, well, we suck. But the need for change, I explain, or can explain, I'm about to explain to you via my phone. This is my current cell phone. I am notoriously easy on phones. This is the 3rd cell phone I've owned in my entire life. Some of you have had 3 in the last year. You know, they come and go. This is a Samsung Galaxy S. I think they're on the Galaxy S5 now or something like that. I've had this phone on probably 4 or 5 years. The phone I had before this one I had for 9 years. I'm not kidding. I had a cell phone for 9 years. My kids used to call it Frankenphone. Because Frankenphone had been through everything. Frankenphone had been dropped, coffee spilled on it, submerged. I couldn't kill this thing. Frankenphone was the phone you used to get when you signed up for a plan. This must be, 2001, 2002. It used to be the money for the cell phone company was in the data plan. Wasn't in the hardware. It wasn't in the actual physical piece of equipment. It was in the plan that you bought because you had limited minutes. How many minutes do you want? And all that stuff. Now they give you all the minutes and stuff. It's all unlimited for free, and they make all their money in these $400 phones. So you used to get this little phone. Remember, this thing was like that little Motorola phone. Remember that they gave you one for free. It was almost like that. It was even older than that. And Frankenphone was my phone. So Frankenphone, I had Frankenphone for 9 years. And I finally killed Frankenphone one night. I was going somewhere. This is in Colorado. And I had to go down to my office late one night. It was like 9 o'clock at night. And it was one of these cold, clear Colorado nights. Have you ever been into Colorado? The weather in Colorado is actually quite mild. It's one of the best kept secrets in the country. But when it gets cold, it can get cold. And it was like 3 degrees. I mean, it was cold. And I had a stack of paper in my house, big stack like this, and Frankenphone sitting on top of the stack of paper. And I had to go down, and it was too big for me to carry in one trip. So I cut it in half, and I walk up to the garage to my car, And when I got to the car, I realized that the papers were in order, alphabetically, and I didn't want to have to surf through it and figure out where the brake was. So I did something you should never do. Some things in life you should never do, right? Don't put your glasses down in a chair, right? Just don't do it. Don't put your keys down in the trunk, assuming you're going to remember it, right? Just don't do it. You're asking for trouble. So I had this stack of stuff with Frankenphone, and I put it on the roof. Okay? And I go back in the house, I get the second pile, come to the car, sit in the driver's seat, set the thing down on the path, and now it's rhythm, right? It's a rhythm thing. You set it down, you put the key in, you pull the door shut, you do it on autopilot. So I back out of the driveway, it's pitch black out, freezing cold, I'm driving down my street, and all of a sudden, I remember this like it was yesterday, I look in my rearview mirror, and I see all this stuff flying around the street behind me. And I'm driving and I see all this stuff flying around the street. And I remember thinking this to myself. I remember thinking, look at that. Some idiot probably... This really happened. So I pull over and I'm running around and I pick up all the stuff and I put it all together and Frankenphone, the battery's over there and the faceplate's over there and the CPU, I put it all together, I find all the pieces of Frankenphone, push the power button, boop, comes back on. Woohoo! Right? So I'm thinking I'm good. So I go and do what I gotta do. Well, it wasn't until the next day that I realized I only thought I found all the pieces. So back in those days, it was like a layered thing. You had the battery, then you had the CPU that sat on top of that, then you had like a soft plate, which is what the buttons actually were, then on top of that you had a face plate. And you could change that face plate out. You go to the kiosk at the mall and get a pink one or one like a flag or whatever. Remember that thing? Well, I didn't have the soft plate that goes behind the face plate. So if I wanted to make a phone call, what I had to do was I had to make sure I had a toothpick with me or a ballpoint pen or something like that and stick it through the holes and wonder, am I pushing the 5 right now or am I pushing the 8? And I did this for weeks until finally my wife said, will you just go get a new phone? Just go get a new phone. You've had that phone for 9 years. Just get a new phone because I'm cheap. I don't like to spend money. Just go spend some money, get a new phone. Which I did, and that phone's sitting right there. That was 2009. Here's the point. There is a point here. Frankenphone, horribly inefficient. Didn't work. Caused me to do way more work than I needed to do to accomplish a fairly menial task, but I owned it. It was mine. I was comfortable with it. I'd had it for years. What the Republican Party likes to call outreach, I'm going to use that word for the night, but I agree with you, is horribly inefficient. Doesn't work. Fundamentally broken. You don't have 92% of an entire voter bloc voting against you and think you're succeeding, but they've owned it. It's been theirs for a number of years. They've gotten comfortable with it. It's thoroughly inefficient, but it's time to throw that thing out and replace it, which is why I tell you my mission in life is to fundamentally change the Republican Party. We got to throw that Frankenphone away and get with a new program because the old program is busted, which on its surface isn't so bad, but the fact that it's as busted as it is costing us our country. Yeah. Because here's what's happening. Most of us in this room, there's a handful of us, younger generation types, but most of us can remember a completely different America. The America he's growing up in, Josh was growing up in, we don't recognize. When we were growing up, the America we grew up in was just fundamentally different. You did not have all these federal agencies, all these state agencies, all these county and city agencies. You didn't have all this alphabet soup, EPA and everybody else running your business. It just didn't exist. At the local level, you've got the Department of Child Protective Services now that can actually tell you how you can or cannot raise your own children. We got spanked. I tell you what. Child Protective Services. When I was a boy growing up, every single mom in my neighborhood had butt-whooping authority on me. Every single one of them. In fact, that was worse, because you'd be over at your friend's house fooling around doing something you darn well know you shouldn't have been doing. She'd catch you, let you have it, send you home, but before you got home, she's already picked up the phone and called your mom. You walk in the door at your house, she's standing there waiting for you, give it to you again. Twice. Once for what you did, and once for embarrassing her in front of her friend. Over somebody else's house acting like you weren't raised right. Imagine, John Brannon, if you had said to your mom, I'm going to call Child Protective Services on you. If I'd have said that to my mom, that sister, she would have asked me 2 questions. Number 1, what's Child Protective Services? Number 2, how are you going to call anybody with a dislocated jaw? Now get up there and straighten up that pigsty like I told you to. I didn't need protection from my mom. I need protection from like 17 people's moms. My dad, 2 or 3 aunts, and a couple of grandmas too. It was just a different America. Some of you in this room, you grew up in a house with a loaded shotgun in the hall closet. It's no big deal. It was just no big deal. You knew it was there. Your brothers and sisters knew it was there. Your friends knew. Everybody knew it was there. It was just no big deal. Grandpa or Uncle Ed came around to take you into town for an ice cream cone. You hop in his pickup truck. There's another one in there. 12 gauge, loaded, ready for action. Uncle Ed never knew. He might come around a corner and scare up some pheasant. And if he was quick enough, he might be able to get some dinner. It was just a way of life for millions upon millions of people. It was just no big deal. It was just a different America. When you and I played in City League ball, if your team finished in 9th place out of 10 teams in the league, you did not go home with a trophy. You didn't go home with a trophy. Only one team went home with a trophy. The champions. The rest of us, all we went home with was a lecture. That's it. Coach would bring you around at the end of the season, say, hey, we tried out there this year, but we weren't quite good enough. And the reason we didn't win is because those other teams are better than we are. So what we probably need to do is spend some time working in the off-season on our fundamentals. What you need to do, if you want to win that trophy next year, is to turn off the boob tube and spend a little more time doing your drills, spend a little more time getting better at your game so that maybe next year we can win that trophy. But between now and then, what you really need to do is get out of here because the very sight of you is making me sick. Hey, the coach was my dad. It didn't matter. You didn't have people calling up the City League office and saying, that coach talked mean to our kids, because we understood back in those days the reason you put children into City League teams. You didn't put your kids into a City League team so that one day they become a major leaguer making tens of millions of dollars. You put them in there for the purpose of learning lessons about life. And the fact of the matter is, in life, everything isn't fair. In life, you're not going to be given trophies. In life, there are going to be people who can throw further than you can throw, who can jump higher than you can jump, who can run faster than you can run. There are going to be people who apply themselves and they get ahead and they win the trophies. And if you want to be one of those people, you've got to apply yourself likewise. Nobody just woke up one day and said, gee, I've got a $300,000 annual salary, a new BMW, and a vacation house down by the lake. How did that happen? It doesn't happen that way. It happens because they worked for it. They earned it. They paid a price to have what they have, and if you want to have what they have, you have to pay that price too. Yeah. I'm talking right now about the old school, and I know some of you know what I'm talking about, but we understood these things 35 years ago. Now somehow all that's just gone out the window. And those of us who were there, those of us who lived it, those of us who know these principles are fundamental truths, find ourselves saying, what can we do? This stinks. What can we do? I hate what I see happening in my country. It's happening on my watch. It's happening right in front of my eyes. And I hate it with every fiber of being in my body. But what can we do? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because what we can do is what we're going to talk about tonight. It's a message I call The Truth Transcends Color. What we can do is revitalize, re-energize, and pump up the horsepower in this party to start taking our country back by attracting ethnic minority voters to our side of the fence. That's what we can do. Not only can we do it, we have to do it. So what I'm going to do over the course of the next hour is slowly but surely lay out for you a very methodical plan for what I think needs to be done to turn this thing around. Yes, that's right, I said hour. This was just the introduction. I'm not even warmed up yet. So let's get this show on the road. If I can remember where I put the stupid